You know, when we look at a mountain, we see this incredible, breathtaking beauty, right? Maybe a challenge to climb, or just a perfect picture. But what if I told you their most important job, for us and for the entire planet, is actually completely invisible? Let's dig into what makes these giants the true pillars of our world.
And this idea right here is so important. Mountains aren't just these passive chunks of rock and ice. Nope. They are active, life-giving systems that support billions of people and countless other species all over the globe.
Okay, let's just start with a number, 60%. Just let that sink in for a second. That's how much of the world's fresh water actually starts its journey in the mountains. It's a truly mind-boggling figure. And all that water? Well, it directly supports over 2 billion people who live downstream. We're talking about everything from the water in your glass to the water that grows our food. That flow from the mountains, it's the lifeblood for a huge part of humanity.
But it's not just about the water. Mountains are also these incredible hotspots for biodiversity. About a quarter of all land-based species on Earth call the mountains home. Think about it. The crazy changes in altitude create all these tiny, unique microclimates and habitats, a lot of which have species you just can't find anywhere else on the planet.
So, this brings us to our first big idea, really understanding how mountains act as these essential pillars for our world. We're going to look at the crucial, life-sustaining services they provide for all of us.
You might have heard mountains called the water towers of the world, and it's for a really good reason. All that snow and ice up high acts like a giant natural reservoir. It catches moisture and then releases it slowly, steadily, all year long. This is what feeds massive rivers like the Colorado, the Indus, and the Ganges, supporting almost half of the entire human population.
But here's the turn. These vital pillars are now facing threats like never before. The very systems that we depend on are being pushed right to the breaking point. And we're about to see exactly how.
The contrast here is just, wow, it's so stark. On one side, you've got these incredible gifts, right? Clean water, clean air, biodiversity. And on the other side are the threats we've brought to their doorstep. Climate change, pollution, deforestation, you name it. It's a collision course.
People have actually used this phrase to describe Mount Everest. Can you believe it? It's been littered with old oxygen tanks, tents, and just trash from decades of climbing. It's a really shocking symbol of how even the most remote, sacred places on Earth aren't safe from our impact.
And the pressures are coming from everywhere. It's more than just tourism. You've got mining and logging, which strip away forests and pollute rivers. Then there's overgrazing, which causes soil to just wash away. And all the unplanned roads and dams that are cutting up these really fragile habitats into little pieces.
So all those individual pressures are now getting supercharged by a much bigger force, climate change. And what this is doing is creating this interconnected crisis in mountain ranges all across the planet.
Okay, to make this feel real, let's zoom in on a specific place, the European Alps. The biggest glacier there, the Aletsch, has already lost almost 2 miles of its length since the late 1800s. Europe's water tower is literally melting, and that has huge implications for the whole continent. And the data, well, it's alarming. The projections show that as much as 90% of all alpine glaciers could be gone by the end of this century. That's 9 out of every 10, just gone. It would totally change the water supply for millions of people.
And this is not just a European problem, not at all. Halfway around the world, the Himalayas, people call them the third pole because they hold so much ice. They're retreating fast too. The water supply for billions of people in Asia is at risk.
And here's the key thing to remember. This isn't just about losing some pretty scenery. The consequences are serious, and they ripple outwards. In the short term, we're seeing more flash floods and dangerous landslides. But long term, it means serious water shortages for drinking and for farming, and just immense stress on those unique mountain ecosystems.
Okay, I know that's a daunting picture, but the story doesn't have to end there. We are at a critical moment where people are starting to take action. So let's shift our focus to the path forward, to the strategies for preservation.
This is the most important question, isn't it? What can we actually do to protect these vital places? Well, the good news is there are solutions, and they're being put into action at every level, from global to local.
So on a large scale, experts are focusing on things like sustainable water management, to use that mountain runoff way more efficiently. They're pushing for responsible tourism, big reforestation projects to keep the slopes stable, and this is so critical, they're involving local and indigenous communities who have generations of knowledge about how to live in balance with these environments.
And there's a real global spotlight on this. In fact, December 11th is designated by the UN as International Mountain Day. It's a day to raise awareness and get people to act to protect these critical landscapes, the very pillars of our world we've been talking about.
And here's a fantastic real-world example of a policy that actually works. To fight that trash problem on Everest, Nepal now makes climbers put down a hefty $4,000 deposit. They only get it back if they bring down their own waste plus garbage left behind by others. It's a direct financial reason to do the right thing. Pretty clever, right?
And this brings the whole conversation right back to us. Because global policies are great, but our individual actions really matter too. So how can you, personally, become a protector, a steward of the mountains?
Well, the actions are actually simpler than you might think. First, reduce your carbon footprint, because climate change is the #1 threat here. When you're out in the mountains, stay on the trails and pack out everything you pack in. Support local mountain communities. Hire a local guide, buy local stuff. And finally, just spread the word. Share what you've learned today. You know, in the end, it really boils down to this simple, powerful idea. For all of human history, mountains have given us water, they've given us shelter, resources, inspiration. Now it's our turn to provide for them, to make sure these vital pillars of our world stand strong for all the generations to come.